Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman, and I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sitdown. I apologize if you can hear my air conditioning in the background. It got a little hot in here during the last record, and I was like, I need to turn the AC on, but I also have more things to do today. So that's going on in the background, but we got some movie things to talk about, man. 6 months of the year has passed. We're almost through 7. I'm a little behind, but that means we got to talk about my favorite things from the first half of this year. And we are going to start off in the movie realm. So why don't you pull up a chair, take a seat. We are talking about my 10 favorite films of 2023 thus far. Now, I'm wearing a Barbenheimer shirt, and if we were talking about overall top 10 for the year, you would see both Barbie and Oppenheimer most likely in that top 10. Right now, they are both in the top 5. However, they came out in July, so we are going to skip them, and we are going to jump into my top 10 from the first 6 months of the year's release calendar. And I'm going to give you my honorable mentions, and I usually only do 5 of those, but I'm going to do 6 because I really liked Blackberry over on Apple TV+. Jay Baruchel, Glenn Howerton, and this really kind of witty comedy about the birth of the BlackBerry. Just really, really, really good stuff over there. Totally worth a watch. And then when you get into the actual 15, I've got Sisu, directed by Jalmari Harlander. Really great stuff. You like that John Wick kind of action? Go watch frickin' Jorma Tamila go out and just kill Nazis in insane ways, trying to keep the gold that he found as a guy who was digging up some gold. It's a really fun action flick, as is Dungeons & Dragons, which would come in at 14. I love Chris Pine. This movie's got all the action, all the fun, everything you want in a summer blockbuster that came out a little bit before the summer. But I loved every second that there was with Dungeons & Dragons. Wish it would have done better at the box office so we would know we were going to get a sequel there, because that was a really fun first movie that could have launched a really cool franchise. Then over at 14, I got Knock at the Cabin. This, for me, is one of the best that we've gotten from M. Night Shyamalan. I really love the subject matter he's talking about here, and he has a performance from Dave Bautista that's just is Oscar worthy. It is that good, man. And I can't. Dave Bautista's gonna get that Oscar goal one day, and I can't wait to see him do it. Then we jump over to my man Ari Aster at 13 with Beau is Afraid. This is one of his biggest swings, I think, that we've gotten thus far. And all 3 movies that he's had has had tons of big swings in them. But he really goes for the fences with this one, and I don't know if it works if not for Joaquin Phoenix. This is a guy, every time he steps on screen, I think he is giving award caliber performances, and Beau is no different, and he carries this really wild, outrageous, twisted kind of fantasy in a way that just made it work really, really well for me. And then at 11, I'm sorry, we're at 12. At 11, we've got The Blackening. I think this is one of the funniest comedies of the year. Such a super sharp satire, specifically around, black culture and black culture inside and black characters inside of horror movies. How Tim Story navigates all of that on the directing side, along with the writing that comes from Dwayne Perkins, who's also one of the stars of the movie. It's just sharp, it's fun, it's witty, it's poignant, and it's one that if you're a horror fan and you've grown up in or around black culture, a movie that you should totally, totally love. But now we move into our official top 10, and we go back to Apple TV Plus with another one of them stories about how a thing got made, and not necessarily how a thing got made, but how a thing got licensed. The Tetris movie over on Apple TV Plus, directed by John S. Baird. Bro, me and my mom put this on one night, just looking for something to throw on that we didn't think my dad would be upset that we would watch because he was late getting home. And it starts off as a pretty straightforward, biopic story about Tetris, except for the fact that Tetris is stuck in Russia. And Taron Egerton's character, Hank Rogers, who's trying to get this thing licensed, or has what he thinks are licenses for this game in certain areas that could help save his company, realizes that he has to kind of get it out of Russia. And this almost becomes like a spy espionage thriller. Like, you get to the halfway mark and this thing turns into Argo. It's unbelievable. One of my favorite movies right out the gate for the year. And me and my mom were sitting there, we're like, we messed up. Dad's gotta be mad we watched this one. It was really, really good. And Egerton is he's so freaking phenomenal. I love that kid so much. And here he just shows like the depth of performance and the variety of things that he can do, man. Like he really can do so many different things, and he's such a wonderful lead. The movie is phenomenal. Go check it out on Apple TV if you haven't yet. Then we go to number 9, the $1 billion movie of 2023. Barbie could be that second one. We'll see what the second weekend looks like, but we got one, and that's Super Mario Brothers. And I could not have been happier with this movie. Like, was there a complicated or even borderline lengthy script? No, but Mario's never had a lengthy, complicated, in-depth story, man. And it was one of the things that the creator wanted for this movie, was to keep it simple the way the game is. And that's the thing I love about this movie, is that it works and it plays like the game does. And it is littered with so many Easter eggs and just things that if you're a Nintendo fan, you're a Super Mario Brothers fan, you're just gonna get so many things that are wonderful. And yes, there's a little bit of a twist. Luigi is your, damsel in distress, and we get to see a more badass Peach, but you know what? I was here for that, because that stuff was great. And I tell you, Chris Pratt's Mario was excellent, man. I thought him and Charlie Day did such a good job as the leads, and they really did pull off Mario and Luigi in ways that, like, every fan that went was super happy with the movie. It's bright, it's colorful, it's fun, it's action-packed, and like I said, it's just littered with things that video game players are just gonna be sitting there going like, yeah, she did that. Yeah, she did that. Oh man, you mentioned some things that I'd like to see in other movies. Like, they're Universal, man, they are gonna have a nice little run with Nintendo if they do this right and they partner up with this correctly, man. Like, let your creative people that come from those gaming worlds be involved in some way, because even if critics don't love that you didn't really deliver much of a story, or if you're not a Nintendo person, this one doesn't really click for you, that don't matter, because when you do the IP correctly, a Billy is where you're headed. And I loved every second of the Super Mario Brothers. That comes in at number 9. At number 8, Evil Dead Rise. I'm a huge Evil Dead fan, and Lee Cronin came in with this movie and said, let's get out of the woods. Let's go into the city. Let's go to an apartment and show you that you can have just as much fun with this lore and these stories as you can out in the woods. And, the woods might be my preference for some of these Evil Dead movies, but the concept of this apartment complex and how they play with it, and Maggot Mommy, like, just being one of the best Deadites ever. I mean, I cannot say enough good things about Alyssa Sutherland's performance in this movie. She's just tremendous. She is the character and performance that make this thing pop in such a big bad way, and you get a crazy third act finale sequence that ended up being more practical than digital, which was just nuts and created some really cool, like, The Thing type imagery, which I loved from Cronin. And the rest of the cast, Lily Sullivan, Morgan Davies, Gabrielle Eccles, Nell Fisher, like, they're all just great here. And, like, you loved spending time with this family and seeing how they dealt with everything that was going on while their mom was being freaking Maggot Mommy, man. Like, this thing's a ton of fun, loaded with blood, got some of the humor beats that you need for an Evil Dead movie. Like, this just screamed Evil Dead and what it could potentially set up for future movies and potential universe building. Like, just so many cool things. I mean, Sam Raimi friggin' got that phone out right away and was like, hey, Lardass, time to hit the gym. If you bring back Sam Raimi and you bring back Bruce Campbell in any way in any future installments, and if you can maybe bring all 3 versions of the franchise and all 3 main leads from the movies, the remake, this one, you could do some really cool stuff. I love what they set up with Evil Dead Rise, and I can't wait for some more Evil Dead. As we move to number 7, we're going to stick in the horror realm. So many horror movies in my top 15. It's just wonderful. But The Boogeyman. This was a movie that I was excited about. Anytime anyone's adapting Stephen King stuff, I'm here for it. And Rob Savage made probably the scariest movie of the entire year. This thing had me on the edge of my seat the whole movie. I jumped multiple times. Yellow Jacket star Sophie Thatcher absolutely crushed it. Little Leia, Obi-Wan Kenobi star Vivian Lyra Blair also absolutely crushed it. I love the two of them as sisters. I love them and how they interact with the idea of the boogeyman coming after them. You get Chris Messina in here as their dad, the guy who doesn't believe at all and is kind of hesitant about everything and is the most disconnected. But by the end of the movie, he gets brought in and this whole family is going through something. And then the character design for the boogeyman, one of the most terrifying character designs I've seen since Smile. This thing hit in a very similar way, but I thought was even scarier than that. Like, this had the scary of Barbarian for me, but like some of the like more crazy fantastical stuff that you get in Smile. It's a wonderful amalgamation of the two, and one of my favorite horror movies of the first half. There's only one other horror movie in front of it. I mean, you're talking about a franchise movie that absolutely rocked, and we will get there. But first, we gotta move in to the last in the back half of our top 10, number 6, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. I love these Mission Impossible movies. Since Chris McQuarrie has gotten his hands on this franchise, it has just taken off, man, and it is soaring at action places that are unbelievable, man. You got John Wick in the hand-to-hand tight choreography at Spectrum, and then you've got these Mission Impossible movies with Ethan Hunt in the big, traditional, action-packed action blockbuster movie like delivery of action, explosions, train sequences. The train sequence in this movie is nuts, man. The fact that it's practically done is just crazy. The lengths that McQuarrie and Cruise will go to do practical action and make it look as stellar as it is wonderful. The story here, I think, is really interesting for a Mission Impossible movie. It's dealing with AI, and you have a villain here that I think is really, really good coming from S.A. Morales, and then you add in Haley Atwell and Pom Clementif into this movie, and the two of them are just unbelievable scene stealers the whole flick. But then you got your main core cast with Cruise and Rames and Peg and Ferguson and Kirby, and they're all back doing the things that you love from all of them, and you just get some really wonderful sequences here. There's a nice chase scene, and while this movie doesn't necessarily get to the heights for me that Fallout does, it's right there. And like I said, as far as the action goes, you're just talking about big, insane sequences, and everybody shows up to play. That's the thing I love about these, man. Is like Tom Cruise gets everybody on board to get in and play in the realm that he's in, and it just really pops, and I can't wait to see what we get in part 2. That's the thing. This movie didn't need to be called part 1. You could have just called it Dead Reckoning, and it really is a complete movie on its own, and where you get to is a super satisfying conclusion, and it sets up what I think could be a really interesting second part to the story that McQuarrie and Cruise are telling. But this is another fantastic entry into the Mission Impossible franchise. Thrilling, action-packed, everything you want, and just one of the best ensemble casts out there right now for me. Number 6, rounding out the back half of the top 10, is Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. Before we jump into the top 5, just a quick recap on that back 5. We've got Tetris at 10, Super Mario Brothers, the movie, at 9, Evil Dead Rise at 8, The Boogeyman at 7, and Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning at 6, which means it's time to move in to the top 5 movies of the first half of 2023 for the Seaman. And at number 5, we go to the other end of the action spectrum, and that is, of course, John Wick Chapter 4. Chad Stahelski, Keanu Reeves are back. They are my other favorite pairing, and in honesty, this is my favorite action franchise of all time, man. These John Wick movies, I just adore them to death, and the way that I love what Tom Cruise brings to the traditional action realm and spectrum with Mission Impossible movies, what Keanu Reeves does for the hand-to-hand tight choreography action, it is just, it's my favorite shit, man. I love watching tight choreography, and I love how Keanu's always like, yeah, I'm on screen for the John Wick action. We're doing John Wick things, cool. I'm getting kicked down 89 stairs, stunt double. But that's the thing where it's like, you know what, Keanu's older, he doesn't need to go down all them stairs. Use a stunt person for that. He's gonna get hit by a car. That's fine. Use a stunt guy. As long as he's out there doing all the stuff that you're watching John Wick do most often. Like when John Wick is doing things, that's when I want Keanu on screen. And when he's on screen, he's just absolutely magical. And much like McQuarrie and Cruise, every time Stahelski and Keanu team up, they find ways to push the envelope, up the ante, make the action bigger, make the choreography tighter, more crazy, introduce new weaponry. How can John Wick kill a person? All of that stuff is on display here, and you add in an even better cast around him than he's had in any other movie, because you have Donnie Yen as the guy he's going opposite of, one of the all-time legends in the world of martial arts movies. Such a great antagonist, but also like somebody that has a respect and a past relationship with John. So there's some really interesting stuff going on with the two of them. Bill Skarsgård as the Marquis, your main antagonist, is tremendous. I mean, like, I know Alexander is being considered for Lex Luthor, but like the Marquis performance, if it ended up going to Bill, he would also crush it, man. Like, just really, really great stuff from your actors in this one, specifically your newbies. And then you get, Ian McShane back, Lawrence Fishburne, they're phenomenal. And almost too fitting farewell to Lance Riddick, R.I.P. But he's tremendous here. Clancy Brown has a wonderful role in this movie. You got another legend in Hiroyuki Sanada, Rina Sawayama, who plays Sanada's daughter in the movie, Akira. She's fantastic. The things that, Stahelski sets up for the universe and just the overall story, there are characters that we can follow now that aren't John Wick, that are just as interesting and have stories and things that I am as intrigued in as I would be anything that John does. And it's just another flat-out home run for Keanu and Stahelski. And in this one, I think this is their best outing in the franchise. I've always said it's tough to top the first movie in something like John Wick. Because that first movie really is the thing that sets up everything. But 4 is really the amalgamation, and I think the climax to everything that these two guys have done together, whether it be stuntman and actor or director and actor. It's just wonderful. Oh, and you get one other performance in this movie that is one of my favorite in the entire year. Scott Adkins as Killa. Yo, Scott Adkins needs to get a movie. Like, give Scott Adkins Batman. Like, James Gunn, there's an out-of-the-box thought, man. Like, that dude, you see what he does in a fat suit in this movie? Yeah, put him in the cape and cowl. I would be here for that. But anyway, yeah, John Wick, absolutely tremendous. Number 5 from me. We go to number 4 with a number 6 in the franchise. Scream 6, coming to us from Matt Bettinelli, Olpin, and Tyler Gillett. Their second outing in the franchise, and honestly, I think this outing is even better than their first. What they do with 6 is just tremendous. It's got the second best opening in the franchise and the most surprising, take you aback, like, holy shit, I can't believe they just did that since the very original. It's one of these things where, like, that opening sequence just speaks to what Bettinelli, Olpin, and Gillett understand about this franchise. They get the things that are supposed to happen, the things the fans want, and how you can adapt and twist those things, and how they play with modern culture, much like the last one. When you're talking about the horror realm, I love the execution of things there. They bring their cast together in an even bigger, better way this time around. I really loved getting to see Jenna Ortega on screen a lot more, and having the opportunity to flesh out her character of Tara Carpenter alongside Melissa Barrera's lead and Sam Carpenter. They're a wonderful duo. I love their sister relationship because it's strained, and you understand why it's strained. But when your back's against the wall, a family just kind of brings you into even better. And then you throw in Jasmine Savoy Brown and Mason Gooding, the other pair of siblings in this movie. Chad and Mindy, they're so good. I love the two of them so much. Mindy is just the perfect, like, horror nerd for this franchise, and Mason Gooding is essentially our Dewey. This guy gets stabbed in ways that I don't understand how you survive. However, if a person could survive 100 stabs, then yeah, Mason Gooding's character can survive anything they throw at him. But that 4, the core 4, as they go by in the movie, I love them so much that you can put them through everything as long as they all come out together. And that's the thing that I think really worked in this movie. Courtney Cox, of course, is back here, and I think she turns in one of her best performances as Gale Weathers. And while Neve Campbell isn't here, you can feel her presence. They mention her. She's off. And there's a part of me that hopes that, like, I know she's in talks to come back possibly for 7, but I kind of hope you don't. Like, Sydney deserves to ride off into the sunset and have her happy ending, man. She's got a family. She's not near where the action's happening. Let her be, man. This new cast, it's what I'm here for. I'm invested in these 4 at this point, where it's like, I think we can say goodbye to the stuff that came before. But if these two guys do bring Neve Campbell back, it's going to rock, and I'm going to be here for it, and I'm sure that we'll use her in an expert way, because I just trust these two dudes inherently with this franchise. So at number 4, Scream number 6. And now we move into my top 3 movies of the year, and we are going to start with an Amazon flick, the streaming wars, man. The streaming realm getting some movies into these top 10s, and this one was one that obviously got a big run in the theater, but it came from Amazon Studios, and that is Air. And yeah, Ben Affleck back directing here, and when that dude is locked in, which is pretty much every movie he's ever made as a director except one. It's electric. And very similarly to how Nolan makes that Oppenheimer biopic just sizzle and almost act like a thriller, Air just has this energy coursing through it from the minute it starts. And some of it is just the chemistry with the cast and just how they all are approaching the roles and playing with things. But so much of it is just what Affleck is creating behind the camera, man. The energy that he is able to get out of the script and out of the sequences and sets that you're on and out of his actors. Like, it's one of these things that he is so good at creating an energy that can carry you from the start to an end of a movie. And it was so nice and refreshing to see that back on display in full effect with Air. And then you're talking about, like, the Air Jordan story. Like I said, we've gotten a bunch of these this year, and this one is easily the best of the bunch. And I love Affleck's role here. Matt Damon as Sonny Vaccaro. It's one of his greatest roles, maybe, of his career. I love him to death in this role and how he sees where the future is. Like, Nike was down and out, man. Like, they were they were looking at the edge of the cliff. Like, shoot, man, I ain't got nowhere else to go. Like, if I go any further, I'm falling off the damn cliff. And then, boom, there Jordans come in and change the whole game. And how he saw that, how he works to get Jordan signed, the interactions with his mother, played by Viola Davis, wonderful. Jordan's agent, played by Chris Messina. I got Messina on this list twice, baby. He's having such a wonderful year, even over on TV, on Peacock, based on a true story. Fantastic stuff with him and Kaylee Cuoco. But he has maybe the best scene in the whole movie. Him and Sonny on the phone, Matt Damon going back and forth, just ribbing and cutting into each other. And, like, he's going off in the most agent of agent ways ever. And it's just electric. It's funny. It's entertaining. And that's the thing. Everybody that shows up here, whether it's, those guys, Jason Bateman, Chris Tucker, Marlon Wayans, like, everyone who shows up just shows up in big ways and adds to the energy of the film that just make you engage with it the whole freaking way. So at number 3, we've got Air, and now we're down to the top 2, and it should be no surprise that my top 2 slots in the first 6 months of the year belong to 2 comic book movies. And the first of those movies, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I think this is the most perfect conclusion to a trilogy you could have had. The fact that Gunn opted to focus on Rocket, my favorite MCU character, and reveal that Rocket has been the hidden lead and the hidden protagonist of this entire series, was just executed so well. And it was really cool to see Gunn do something different. This has the Guardians fun in it sometimes, but when Rocket, his life is hanging in the balance within the first 15 minutes of this movie. This movie has an edge to it. It has a darkness to it. It has a drama to it that we haven't seen in any of the other Guardians movies. And there are elements of that we've seen in other places, but the way the Gunn leans into the darkness of this movie and navigates it in a way that doesn't make you feel bad. You kind of feel uplifted. Even though we are dealing with animal cruelty and things like that, it's very poignant in those moments, and it really adds to Rocket's story, which really adds to the overall Guardians story. And, of course, Peter Quill is going to have a really good through line here too. The cast, as always, is tremendous, and it really is one of the perfect trilogies. For me, each movie gets better than the one before it, and just watching what Gunn was able to do and the spectacle he puts on display here, the soundtrack turned into one of my favorites. I wasn't like totally on board all over the place the first time because I didn't know some of the songs. But I started listening to that. It's one of the strongest soundtracks in the entire trilogy, and I love that it's different, and the vibe and the tone that gets set. It's one of these, like, I didn't realize that the first song was the tone setter of these movies until I saw this one. And I just loved all of that stuff. Really great things, like I said, from everybody involved, but mostly Rocket, what you get from Bradley Cooper and Chris Pratt as Peter Quill, like the 2 best friends, and they've got a lot on the line in this movie, and it brought me to tears. It was emotional. It was funny. It was everything I wanted from a Guardians movie, and then a lot more. So at number 2, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And now we get to number 1, and we're just talking about the greatest comic book movie of all time at this point, man. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. blew me away. It's living artwork, man. Like the animation was the biggest selling point in the first one, and the thing that blew people away. I didn't know how you could up it, and yet somehow Lord and Miller find a way to up it with some of the best animation you've ever seen. The fact that every universe has a different style, the fact that those styles can blend into each other, like as a comic book reader, knowing that you could have a run on Spider-Man with 6 different artists. Every artist's interpretation is different, and sometimes they bleed into each other, and seeing that depicted on screen and used as a storytelling method was just unbelievable for me. And then the fact of the matter is yes, this is a movie, unlike Dead Reckoning, that really just cuts off right in the middle, like a cliffhanger. You're like, wait, what? There's not, I gotta have more than that. But in the same respect, you get a full, wonderful arc for Miles in this movie, and you get the added full, wonderful arc for Gwen, who's one of my favorite characters in the Spider-Verse, and Shamik Moore and Haley Steinfeld are just absolutely tremendous. And like I said, I love the story. I love how Miles' family and the impact that has on him plays into this one, and how the family you choose plays into it. I love our new team. Spider-Punk is friggin' one of the best characters that they've added. I loved everything that we got from friggin' Daniel Kaluuya with Hobie Brown. Spider-Man 2099, Miguel O'Hara, Oscar Isaac, absolutely crushing it. A real threat to Miles, and what he stands for in the course of Miles' story is something that I'm really interested to see played with in Beyond the Spider-Verse, and what, you've gotten from Miguel as far as what he's set up with all of these spider people and how they play with canon events, and like how Miles might be a mistake because the spider that bit him was supposed to bite somebody else. Like, that whole thing is so fascinating, and it so plays into like becoming the hero that you kind of make for yourself. And that also plays into like why I love Spider-Punk so much. He stands against all of that type of stuff. He doesn't necessarily want to be there. He's the punk rock man. Like, he's against the man and the system and all of these things. So how he kind of plays into that and helps Miles grow, like, it's just a really interesting story that I think is a natural progression from the first one, and sets up some really, really cool things for Beyond the Spider-Verse, and I can't wait till we get there. But yeah, there you go, man. That is the top 10 movies of 2023 so far for the C-Man in the books. Let's go back through them real quick. We'll start with the honorable mentions, which I did 16 because Blackberry freaking ruled on Apple TV Plus. Then 15 through 11, Sisu, Dungeons and Dragons, Knock at the Cabin, Beau is Afraid, and The Blackening. Just 5 movies that I think are all really excellent, all worth your time when they come around to streaming if you haven't seen them yet. But definitely worth a view. Really, really special things going on in all of those movies. And then my top 10, we've got another Apple TV Plus movie, Tetris. We've got Super Mario Brothers, the movie. We've got Evil Dead Rise at number 8. At 7, we've got The Boogeyman. At 6, we've got Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. Our top 5 is rounded out by John Wick Chapter 4, Scream 6. Top 3, Air. Number 2, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And at number 1, gotta be hard to knock this one out of the number 1 spot, folks, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. We've had a hell of a year already, and specifically in the horror realm. I mean, in my top 10 alone, we've got 3 horror movies, and then when you expand it out into the 15, you've got 6 out of the 15 movies are horror. I love seeing that genre continue to succeed and just crush. I love seeing just the things that we're getting, whether it's the action realm, the superhero realm, the just straightforward drama, based on a true story stuff. Like, everything has just been really solid this year. And the top of the crop of this year is really, really, really good across the board. So those are my top 10 of 2023 so far. As I said, Barbie and Oppenheimer. Barbenheimer, not on this list as they came out in July, but they are currently in my top 5. I've got Barbie at 2. I've got Oppenheimer at 4. Yeah, this is just a great year for films so far. I'm having a good time. But now, I'm going to shut up. I'm going to turn it over to you. I want to know what you guys are thinking. Where are you landing in your top 10 of the year thus far? What movies are your favorite? Where do things like Spider-Verse and Air and Scream 6 and John Wick 4 and Mission Impossible 7, Boogeyman, horror, comedy, action, we've gotten a little taste of everything this year. So what are your top 10 right now? What'd you think about my top 10? Anything you got, good, bad, indifferent, on the first half of the movie year of 2023? Put it down below in the comments section. Look forward to talking to you down there. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new, you want to come hang out with the C-Man anytime we're talking movies, TV, trailer, reactions, you want to be here to see what I think about movies for the rest of the year, you want to see my Secret Invasion finale coverage, you just want to show a little love and support to the old C-Man because you dig the vibe, well, hey, come join C-Maniac Nation if you haven't. It's super easy. You just got to jump over there, hit that subscribe button, hit that little bell if you want those alerts, and until next time for the C-Man Cinema Sit Down, I've been the C-Man. I'm signing off. Peace! Oh, you guys are still here. You snuck up on me. You must be looking for more of this guy. Well, I got 2 video options for you, man. Right up here and right over here. And if you want all those C-Man goodies, well, hey, come join the squad right on over there, and I'll catch you on the next one.